This is where we get into a little bit of technical details, but it is important that we understand the settings menu before we go live. It contains a lot of different options, and we must use the best practices that we can for our setup to be able to deliver the best quality streams. So let's open our settings here. We get the first menu, which is general, and that's what we're going to look at today. So we've got very simple things as we start. So we've got our language and our theme, and we've got automatically check for updates on startup. I would suggest this unless you have something that depends on a legacy version of OBS. The OBS people make a very good testing period before they go live with something, so it's very safe to update OBS. We can also open the stats dialog on startup. Now in our case, we have the stats dialog here. It will always open on startup regardless, so if you have your stats dialog in your UI as a doc, you don't need to open that. It will just open an extra window. And we have our first important options here as far as output goes. And I think some of these are overlooked, and I've found that using them over the years makes quality of life a bit easier. So show confirmation dialog when starting streams, so it doesn't just start a stream. It will say, do you really want to start the stream? Show confirmation dialog when stopping streams, which does the same when you hit stop streaming by mistake. There have been times when I have been moving my mouse around and hit stop streaming by mistake. This will prevent it, so when you click it, a dialog box comes up and says, hey, do you really want to stop streaming? Yes. The same thing we can do for recording. So show confirmation dialog when stopping recording. We don't have a confirmation dialog when starting recording because the stream, if it goes live and people can see you. If you started recording, nobody's going to see that. You could just delete it, so we don't have the option for that. You also have the option to automatically record when streaming. Sometimes you can forget to start recording once you started streaming. This will prevent that because it just starts recording as soon as you start streaming. You can choose to keep recording when the stream stops. So say you're playing a game and you want to carry on after you end the stream. So you stop the stream and keep playing, and you're still recording. You don't have to stop anything. We can automatically start the replay buffer when streaming. We'll see the replay buffer later, but it will give us an extra option to start the replay button. We can automatically start it from here, and keep replay buffer active when stream stops. Essentially is the same as keep recording when stream stops. So you're keeping the replay buffer ongoing if you decide to stop your stream. We also have our source alignment snapping here. Our source alignment snapping is the snapping for the program and preview window when we're moving stuff around. Actually, for the preview window in that case, when we are moving the sources around, it allows us to snap sources to the edge of the screen, snap sources to other sources, snap sources to horizontal or vertical and vertical center, and we can choose the sensitivity and amount of pixels here. I'd leave it as default. I just have these ticked, which I believe are the default options, and it's worked just fine for me. If you're using projector mode, we have options here to hide the cursor over your projector, to make the projector always on top, and save projectors on exit. We will be checking projectors later. These are handy options which you should probably tick if you're using projector mode quite often. System tray, it will show OBS in the system tray, so it's enabled right now. As you can see, we have OBS right here. We can always minimize the system tray when started if we don't want to have it in our taskbar here. And we can also always minimize the system tray instead of the taskbar if that is what we need. Here where we have preview, this is talking about the preview window here. And we can hide the overflow. Now, overflow is when a source is larger than the preview, and we can see the overflow out. This is not the overflow here. If we leave it like this, I can show you the overflow. So let's do this. As you can see, that is the overflow right there. If I go back into our settings, if I hide overflow, we can't see it. Overflow always visible, will always show the overflow, and show overflow even when source is invisible. If we apply that, and we'll get the source here. Let's press OK. So we can see the overflow even when we can't see the source. This, of course, depends on personal preference. I usually leave it like this. It's always helpful like this, but you decide. Again, there's no right or wrong for these settings. It's your choice. As far as studio mode goes, we have a few options. The simpler one, which is enabled by default, is show preview and program labels. As you see, if I press apply, they will be removed from up there, and they're gone. And if I tick it again, they come back. I can do transition to scene when double clicked, which I'll have to close. That double click, not this double click. So I can move it like there. So I have a single click, which will just bring it there, and a double click, which will move it. And we also have the option to enable portrait or vertical layout. So if I do that, our videos will go vertical instead of horizontal. There could be uses for this. So if you have a vertical screen, you might want to change this to vertical mode. It's your choice. I use it horizontally because I have a landscape layout monitor. And last but not least, on the general tab, we have our multi-view options. So we have click to switch between scenes, show scene names, and draw safe areas. And multi-view layout allows us to decide how many scenes we want to see on a multi-view layout. So multi-view we will discuss later, but the options relate to this. So if we go into windowed mode, we can see all our sources here. These lines on this window, those are the safe zones. And if we click here, it will allow us to just swap our scenes in preview. If we check the advanced, have click to switch between scenes on, we can turn it off. And now we cannot change anything. It's just there for monitoring. And we have our scene names happening there. And that's pretty much the general tab. In the next video, we'll be looking at the stream tab and the options that gives us for streaming and recording. If you found this tutorial helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, drop any comments in the comment section, and check out the links in the description. See you in the next one.